Well, good evening. It's nice to be back again. I really do enjoy coming up to Genting. People don't know how lucky you are. My gosh, Kuala Lumpur has got a haze hanging over it. It wasn't until we started to come up the mountain that I actually realised that the sky was blue today. It's quite grey in KL. Very, very, very hazy. You people are quite blessed to be up here. You can see the sky, there's a breeze, and you can probably breathe some nice fresh air when you get the opportunity to go outside. So, first of all, how's the practice going? Who's managing to find time each day? Okay, not so many.
From 1 day to 2 days.
Oh, from 1 day to 2 days. That is 100% improvement in practice. You can give yourself a pat on the back. Okay, and so how's the meditation going? When you are meditating, how is it going? Are we able to keep the mind on the breath? Or is it off wandering constantly? I can see from the smiley faces it's off wandering quite constantly. That's the nature of the beast, so don't be so disappointed. This is the important thing, don't be disappointed. So, got some things to speak on tonight. Okay, for some of you people, the mind is really jumping from place to place, just constantly jumping from place to place. This is what we call the monkey mind. And so it may help in your practice just to observe the monkey mind, as opposed to trying to follow the breath and to keep the mind on the breath. Perhaps you can start the practice of following the mind. So what we have is the mind observing the mind. So you're like an outside observer looking in. So when you sit down to start the practice, you might start with the intention of observing the breath. But then you might find that this just is not happening. And so we can just observe the mind. What is the mind doing? Where is it going? Does it tend to dwell in the past? Does it tend to think about the future? So we can start to observe the mind in this way. And even this practice of observing the mind in this way sets up mindfulness. And the mind will actually start to calm down as it realizes it's being watched. It's almost like naughty kids, Kids are doing something a bit naughty and then you catch them and, they tend to stop and pretend that they weren't doing it in the first place, And so our minds are the same, and so we can, if we want to, just observe what the mind is doing. Because as I say, this is a form of mindfulness. Other times we can find that, especially when the practice isn't going as well as we might hope, and remember what I've always said, expect nothing in your meditation practice. Expect nothing, you can't be disappointed. If you get something, you can be really thrilled. But if you get nothing, you haven't disappointed yourself. But sometimes we sit down and we try to meditate and we put so much effort into trying to concentrate that we end up, we get very, very tired very, very quickly and we want to give the practice up. So what we can do is we can substitute we can do walking meditation. Now you don't need a big distance to do walking meditation. I mean, from where I'm sitting now to the door is plenty of room to walk. And so we're just going to change the object of our meditation. And so as we start to walk, we're just aware of walking. We don't have to be aware of every footstep that we take. We don't do the lifting, moving, placing that's popular in the Vipassana meditation. We're just aware of walking. So we know, so as we walk, just, you might slow your walk down slightly, but then you're just observing, walking, walking, walking. When you get to the end, you're going to stop and you're going to turn around. So you can be aware of stopping, you can be aware of turning, and then you start to walk back in the opposite direction. Walking, walking. We're just aware of walking, And the walking can help give us just a little bit of energy to help with the sitting. Sitting takes effort. Walking gives energy. But if we're going to start doing this, try and keep the practice even. Maybe you do 5 minutes walking, followed by 5 minutes sitting. Don't do more walking than sitting, and don't do more sitting than walking. Try to keep the whole thing balanced. And this will help us in our practice. The Buddha, he taught, we have the 4 bodily postures. So we have sitting, standing, walking, and laying down. And he said, don't focus too much on laying down meditation. Try and do some of the others, because we all know where laying down meditation heads into. But so we can do these 4 different types of meditation. If we're just standing, we can just be aware of standing. And the beauty about all of these is people don't know you're meditating. So even at work, when you're walking from one place to another, you can just actually be aware of walking. So you're doing a little bit of meditation during your work time. So this is taking meditation off the cushion and into the workplace. So we can practice in many, many different places. And this is the beauty of the meditation. The Buddha taught over 40 different types of meditation. And so there's some, the kasina meditation, where you just look at a coloured disc for a while, and then you close your eyes and you just try to keep that coloured disc in your mind for as long as you can. The water kasina, we have a dish full of water, and you just concentrate on the dish full of water. All of these things can bring our minds to a point of concentration. And then when we get this point of concentration, we start to come into tranquility. And once we've developed the tranquility, this is where we start moving towards the first jhana. But we're not going to push into first jhana. First jhana will come when first jhana comes. For some people it can come very quickly. For some people it may take a little bit longer. When we start our meditation practice, there are other things that we can do to try and calm the mind down. I mean, there's you could start with salutations to the Buddha, something like that. Namo Tassa. You could chant this a few times. You could actually start your meditation session with metta. So we spoke about this the other week. May I be happy. May I know the cause of happiness. May I be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May all sentient beings be happy and know the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. If we want to with this one, if we want to use it at the beginning of our meditation practice, we can expand on this one. So this is where we can start going, may my family be happy, may my neighbours be happy, the people in my street, the people in my city, the people at my work, may my relatives be happy, may those who don't like me be happy. This is always the hardest one. But this is true compassion, when we can truly, truly wish for happiness for those who would wish to harm us, for those who would speak badly of us. When we can truly wish happiness upon them, then we are truly practicing compassion. And so, what we'll do tonight is, I just want you to start off, this is all going to be in your own time now. So whatever method is going to work for you, whether it's just in your mind chanting, or in your mind doing meditation, I'd just like you to start with that. And then when you feel your mind starting to calm down a little bit, then you can start either A, watching the monkey mind, or B, observing the breath. So just take a moment or two, get yourselves relaxed. Find a position that you're going to be able to hold for a little bit of time. Now, we were talking just before we started about what happens if we develop pain, or more commonly numbness. Our legs go to sleep. First thing, when your legs go to sleep, do not allow the rest of your body to follow it. But when our legs go numb, we can spend a minute or two observing the numbness. Don't just change position immediately, Spend a little bit of time just observing the numbness. How does it feel? Is it a dull pain? Is it a sharp pain? And as you start to observe it, see if it gets worse or if it gets better. If it gets better, no worries. If it gets worse, I have a really, really good plan. Change position. No big secret. But when we change position, bring our minds to know that we are changing position. So if you've got to move one of your legs somewhere, bring your mind to know the movement of that leg. And then once you've changed position, you'll find that the numbness will start to ease. Actually, it could get worse. We all know that we get pins and needles, and as we move, and I don't know what it is, things start flowing, and it gets quite painful, but it does go away. So we can observe this briefly. And then once we've observed that this numbness has gone away, and the discomfort is no longer with us, see, what we've done here is we've understood cause and effect. The way we've sat has had an effect. The way we're sitting is the cause, and the effect is the numbness in the legs. When we change position, we've changed the condition. This is what causes the pain to go away. And these are the insights that we want to start getting out of our meditation, And so we can observe this, and then once the pain's gone away and we're aware that it's gone away, then we can come back to the object of meditation that we are trying to meditate upon. And so we just take some time now and either do our meditation or a little bit of silent chanting, and then we'll do some meditation either on the breath or on the monkey mind. Who used the monkey mind method? And did it work? Or who did the following the breath method? And did that work? Anybody able to stay with with their object of meditation for any length of time? So it's a practice, you know. And you know, if we start to expect too much, you know, a lot of people, they come to meditation practice and they expect tranquility immediately. Yeah, not going to happen. You know, so we have to keep the practice up. You know, the other day, actually it was last week, it was the day before I came up here, I was quite ill in the morning, on Monday morning, to the point where the monks rushed me to a 24-hour clinic. And I was examined by the doctor, and she prescribed me some medication that I had to take for about a week. And, well, you guys, you saw me up here on Tuesday night, it wasn't so bad, huh? You know, and our practice is kind of like that, you know? I mean, our minds are kind of like the sickness, you know? Our minds aren't well, you know, they're all over the place. You know, they're not in that tranquil, peaceful state that they should be. And we can see we can see the Buddha as the doctor, you know. So we know that things aren't all well with us, and so we go after Dr. Buddha. And Dr. Buddha has given us a prescription. He knows what our problem is, and he's given us our prescription. Now, when I went to the doctor, she gave me a prescription, and they gave me some tablets, and I had to take the tablet, you know, and one before food, one after food, 2 times daily. This was the instructions that the doctor gave me, and these are the instructions that I followed. And the Buddha has given us instructions on how to get well, and we need to follow these instructions that the Buddha has given us if we want to become well. Do any of you people here work in any of the restaurants? No? Do any of you go to restaurants? Okay. So, it's kind of like, you know, you're feeling hungry, yeah? And it's like, oh, I need to eat something. And then you see the restaurant is right there. And so you go into the restaurant, and you pick up the menu, and you examine the menu, you know. You go, well, that's a really nice starter. Well, I wouldn't mind that for a main. And where's the dessert card? And you go and you check out the dessert card. And it's like, yeah, you know, cup of tea would be good. And then you just sit there and you examine the menu, and you examine the menu, and you think, yeah, that's good, that's excellent, that's good. But you don't order any food. You're going to get more hungry just by examining the menu. What you need to do is you need to get the waiter across, you know, excuse me, not like this, you know, and then they will take the order to the kitchen and they'll bring the food out, and then you'll eat and you won't be hungry anymore, you know. And this is the way of the practice, you know. It's no good just looking at the menu. You have to order the food, and when the food arrives, we need to eat the food. When we eat the food, the hunger goes away. You know? And so when we're practicing, it's the same thing. You know? We know what the practice is about, now we need to do the practice. I was doing some of my usual study the other day, and I read this. The Buddha could have concluded his teaching career with some inspiring words on the bliss of Nibbana or on emptiness, but he didn't. He ended with a piece of advice: achieve completion through apamada. Now, some of the English translations of through apamada would be untiringly, earnestly, or with diligence. So that gives us a notion of a sustained, determined effort. The Thais interpret this as heedfulness, vigilance, weariness and care. And in the sutras itself, in another context, it defines apamada as carefully guarding the mind against defiling mental states, at the same time strengthening it in terms of conviction, persistence and mindfulness. So we can see that it's not just a message to persevere. We can't be complacent. We need to watch out for danger. We need to protect the mind's good qualities and not get caught with our guard down. These interpretations make sense of other instances where the Buddha stressed the importance of apamada. Like when he said that apamada is the path to the deathless, in Dhamma, verse 21. Or that all skillful qualities of mind are rooted in apamada. They converge in apamada and have apamada as the foremost amongst them. You can find that in the Anguttara Nikaya, Samyutta Nikaya. So mere sustained effort can't fill the role of apamada in these passages. For effort without wisdom can create havoc. So vigilance and heedfulness provide the perspective needed to keep effort on the right track, keeping us wary of our potential for causing pointless suffering for ourselves and others, and teaching us to trust in our ability if we take the appropriate care to bring those sufferings to an end. This combined sense of weariness and trust is based on conviction of the principle of karma, that our actions really do make a difference, that the difference between causing and not causing suffering really does matter, and that the principles of wholesome and unwholesome actions are patterned enough that we really can learn useful lessons from our mistakes. And that's good to know, eh? It's like, we learn lessons from our mistakes. We're not feeling guilty about our mistakes, but we can learn from them. At the same time, this combination of weariness and trust is what allows apamada to play such an important role in the practice, providing the motivation to get on the path of wholesome or skillful action in the first place, and the inner checks and balances that can keep us on the path all the way to the deathless. Nibbana. Without a strong sense of trust in the path, it's hard to attempt it. Without a strong sense of the dangers inherent in any conditioned happiness, it's easy to fall off. We know that for a fact. If we are not aware of some of the dangers, then they become pleasures, and they become pleasures that we seek after. And it's very easy, if we're not guarded, to start chasing after these sense pleasures. The chief danger lies in the mind's creative capacity for self-deception. But unlike other religious figures, the Buddha simply didn't recommend that if we can't trust ourselves, we should place our trust in him. Instead, he provided ways for us to train ourselves to be trustworthy by investigating the areas where we tend to lie to ourselves most. In his first instructions to his son, in the Majjhima Nikaya, he told Rahula to reflect on his intentions before acting on them, and to carry through with them only if he saw that his intended actions would cause no harm. Brother Billy and I were having a chat this evening on the way up here in the car. I read a sad story today. It was about 4 years ago. There was a lady, and she really cares about animals. This took place in Canada. She was driving down the highway when she saw some ducklings on the medium strip of the highway. And not wanting the ducklings to come into any harm, she stopped her car in what you guys here would call the fast lane to get the ducklings to safety. Well, it would appear that a motorcycle came around the corner with a man and his daughter on board. They hit the car and they both died. The woman today was found guilty of negligent homicide, and she can face quite a few years behind bars. You know, her actions, her intentions were honourable intentions, but she didn't think of the possible consequences. You know, we don't stop our car on the highway. We especially don't stop our car. You know, we have to. We've got the hard shoulder that we can pull onto. But she stopped in the middle of the road, you know. So sometimes we do. Sometimes we can think that our intentions are good intentions, but we have to think through what are the possible consequences of what it is that we do. So these instructions on integrity are very important. You know, we know that sometimes, you know, the Buddha talks about speech sometimes, you know, and what you say may be true, but he asks, is it necessary? Is it harmful? You know, we have to be very, very careful in all of our actions. And this is where the practice of concentration meditation is going to help us. Because we don't just use this in our meditation practice. This is something that we use in our daily lives. And the more mindful we can become through our practice, then the more mindful we become in our everyday life. And so this is why I'm constantly urging people to find that quiet time. You know, the need to set up a daily routine is so important, you know, because this is the way that the practice is going to come to any sort of fruition. If we don't practice on a daily basis, then our practice will just drift off like leaves on the wind. You know, we need to become rooted in our practice. It's so very, very important, you know. I know we live busy lives, but at the moment all we're talking about is 10 minutes, you know. And I'm sure we can all find 10 minutes. I mean, if you like, I'll make a deal with you. I promise, if you promise to get up 10 minutes earlier to meditate, then I promise I too will get up 10 minutes earlier to meditate. So you'll know that when you're meditating, I am meditating with you. So if you'll do it, I'll do it. So basically, now we're helping one another. And you know, Buddhism Buddhism's about compassion, you know. We are compassionate people. When we practice, because the practice makes us better people, then we can help make those around us better people, you know. Because when they can see that no matter what's going on around us, we are able to remain calm, they'll want to know why. How is it that you can remain calm when everything else around you is going chaotic? You know? This is when we begin the missionary work of Buddhism. You know, because it's through our practice that we'll be known. You know, it's the same. You know, I come here, every Tuesday. But you people will know me through my practice. Any clever words that I can come up with are absolutely meaningless, you know. It's through my practice that you'll know whether or not I'm actually doing what I speak of, you know. So if I suddenly start getting angry, then you can be fairly sure that my practice is falling down somewhere, you know. And then maybe you need to say to me, hey Bhante, you need to practice some more. You know, I won't be offended. If I get offended, then I need to practice some more. So I'm in big trouble. I gotta stay happy. I mean, I was talking the other day about the happiness that I found. You know, when I transformed from the happiness of a hippie, or happiness as we like to call it, to the happiness that comes from the Dhamma, you know, there is actually a true happiness. You know, no, I'm not an arahant, and yes, things disturb me occasionally, you know, but I don't get angry about things anymore, and that's really nice, you know. But it wasn't through reading the Dhamma or listening to somebody teaching me the Dhamma. It's through the practice of the Dhamma, you know. And the practice of the Dhamma, so much of it is centered in the practice of meditation. I mean, we read the suttas and we see that, you know, the Buddha, the bhikkhus, they would get up in the morning, they would go off on alms round, they'd come back, they'd eat something, and then they'd go off and they'd practice, you know, all day till about 6 o'clock at night. And then when they'd finish their practice, and they'd go off and they'd discuss the Dhamma, you know. And that is why I don't expect any of you guys to meditate from 6 in the morning till 6 at night, you know. I've got a feeling you might lose your jobs. So that would be a little bit silly. So I'm not going to try and encourage you to do that. Unless, of course, you decide to become bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, in which case that will be fine. You know, we'll set up a meditation centre somewhere and we can all meditate to our heart's content. But all the time you've got your jobs, you're just going to have to find a little bit of time to do that practice each and every day, you know, because we do take it into the workplace. You'll find those things that annoy you about people won't annoy you quite so much. I'm not saying that you're going to start loving them all straight away, because it's not going to happen. But over a period of time, with the practice, your compassion will become greater. And those people, doesn't matter how annoying they are, they won't be able to annoy you. And in fact, if they're deliberately trying to annoy you, you're just going to confuse the heck out of them by loving them. You know? And they'll be so confused that they'll just have to stop trying to annoy you. And they will become very interested in why it is that you're no longer annoyed. We have a thing I used to do it, in English we call it button pushing. And I was very good at button pushing, you know. I could find what annoyed somebody. So I had to push a few buttons occasionally to find the right one. But I could do it. And people could also find my button. But through the practice of meditation, I learned where my button was. And so I've started to disable it. It's getting more difficult for people to push that button, you know. I've been jamming stuff in there. Compassion, metta, patience, all of these things. So my button is very difficult to push. It won't go in quite so easily. And this is what we're doing. So we're setting up a practice of patience. We get this, when you say that you're going to meditate for 10 minutes every morning, and you sit for 10 minutes every morning, you are practicing patience. You know? The fact that you can't get your mind under control and you sit for 10 minutes is patience. So even though it doesn't seem like your meditation is working, the mere fact that you sat for 10 minutes, you cultivated patience. And you're cultivating patience because you want to be more compassionate. So you're cultivating compassion as well as patience. And as you start to realize that, then you'll discover that you're actually starting to cultivate some form of concentration. You're starting to understand why you're doing the practice. And then you'll want to practice some more. And then one day I'm going to walk in here and I'm going to say, well, who did 10 minutes every day last week? And you're going to go, Bhante, we did 30 minutes every day last week. Because we're loving it. You know, and it's funny, often we talk about, you know, getting rid of desires. And I've spoken of it myself, you know. When we sit down to meditate, we don't desire anything. It's all about letting go. In actual fact, there is wholesome desire. So we have to be very careful with wholesome desire. Because wholesome desire can just become desire. The desire to meditate is wholesome. But we need to be very, very careful when we go into our meditation practice. That we don't drag this in and then our mind just gets stuck on this, you know, I want to be an arahant, want to be an arahant, want to be an arahant. It's not, you're going to disappoint yourself. But we sit down, the mere fact that we sit down to meditate is wholesome, you know. So we're already developing wholesomeness. And that 10 minutes of wholesomeness is 10 minutes when there's no unwholesomeness. You see? So we've had compassion, we've had patience, we've had wholesomeness. It's all coming together. So I want to encourage you, as much as you can, to keep up with the practice. It's going to benefit you, and it's going to benefit all of those around you. So we just need to try. And don't give up. That's the important thing. Don't give up. You know, we can always find an extra 10 minutes to watch the TV. But we can always find an extra 10 minutes. We got a TV up here in our minds. There's all sorts of pictures and scenarios taking place. So we can watch that. We're just not wasting electricity. So you're being environmentally friendly. Look at this, we're being patient, we're being compassionate, environmentally friendly because we got the TV off for 10 minutes. Everything a Buddhist needs to be doing. This is wonderful. So I'm going to encourage you next week Okay, I don't expect you to tell me next week that you've all been doing 30 minutes meditation per day. But let's practice. Let's try and get that 10 minutes in. Well, that's about all I'm going to talk about tonight. So, are there any questions, any comments?